good afternoon, PMappers, and to our dear viewers. Welcome to the most awaited program here in PMAP, the People Manager on Cam. This is the online show of the People Management Association of the Philippines, or PMAP, the premier organization of HR professionals, people managers, and leaders in the country. Thank you for joining us once again in this afternoon of field learning about people, leadership, human resources, innovation, and business. My name is Lawrence Ko, Head of Learning and People Development of Mondinisin Corporation, and I will be your anchor and host for today. I am so excited to be with you, all of those that are connected via Yardstream, via Facebook, via LinkedIn, via YouTube, because this Wednesday afternoon we have a very exciting episode lined up for you. This June episode is actually our fourth episode this year, 2023, focusing on team engagement for our two segments, Must and Anticipate This. The Must segment provides us the opportunity to have meaningful conversations on what is important for people and businesses, particularly on current events and current issues. The Anticipate This segment, on the other hand, focuses on innovations, inventions, breakthroughs, or even regenerative transformations that we can look forward to so that we'll be up to date in supporting the people in our respective organizations or even the wider society. So continue tuning in, and I invite you to stay with us until 2 p.m. You can also connect with us by sending out your comments or your questions in their respective sections. With that, let's now get the ball rolling by going to our first segment, which, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be Must, where the trends and happenings that you simply cannot miss are in the spotlight. And for this month, we have the Must Talk About topic, which is building a first team mindset. Again, the topic is building a first team mindset. And joining us this afternoon to talk more about this, and I'm very excited to do this introduction, is the chief instigator and founding partner of Haraya Coaching. She is a seasoned leadership and life coach with several certifications in coaching, neuroscience, business, and leadership. She also served for 2 terms as a board member of the International Coaching Federation Philippines Chartered Chapter. She is also a cancer voyager and has found purpose in helping others find their courage so they can reach uncharted waters by believing that they can be and do more than they think possible. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Jackie Caniza. Good afternoon, Jackie.
Hi, Lawrence. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you.
Great, great. Good afternoon, great. Good afternoon, Jackie. And Jackie, I am sure some of our viewers are very interested to know what
Mhm.
does having a first team mindset mean?
Yeah. So I first came across this concept of first team from the work of Patrick Lencioni. If he's
Mhm.
familiar to you, he wrote the book "The Five Dysfunctions of a Team." So this was a book from way back when I was still in corporate, no, and he describes a first team as the team where your first loyalty should belong, no, in particular when you're in a leadership team. Usually you will have functional leaders, right? Ahead of finance, of HR, sales, marketing, etc. And when you bring these leaders together, they form an executive team, a mancom, or whatever they might be called, right? In many cases in organizations, even for myself, no, when I was starting out in corporate, the mindset is that my first team is the team that I lead, which is my functional team. And what Patrick Lencioni suggests is that that should not be the case. That should not be your first team. In fact, he says that your first team should be the team of leaders that you are a part of that drive the business. No, so um, in fact, it's funny how he describes it. No, when you have leaders whose first teams are their departments, what happens is they kind of end up lobbying for their departments and their functions when they come to these leadership meetings, and ang description niya is it's like a congress or like UN where there isn't a common agenda. There are various agendas that are being put forward depending on what's needed. The danger of that is you have these different functions that may not necessarily be aligned towards a common end, and that's why he suggests that your first team really should be this leadership team that drives the business. So, for example, if I was, head of HR, having a first team mindset means I am a business leader first, an HR leader second. Having a first team mindset means that my executive team is my first team and my HR team is my second team. I know that sounds counterintuitive for many of us. I also struggled with it. But that's the concept in gist, Lawrence.
Great, great. Thank you for sharing the concept, Jackie. I mean, Patrick Lencioni and the five dysfunctions of a team are
Mm,
just starting to make serious rounds in organizations locally. So it's
mm,
very exciting to have this conversation early, relatively early, with you and with PMAP on Cam for our June episode. So
mm.
thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure that people are now glued in and are raring to hear more about this concept of first team.
Yeah.
But Jackie, given your experience working with different organizations, both
Mm.
in-house and as a consultant, now with your work now in Haraya, what would you say then are the challenges that you've seen in teams when it comes to developing this particular mindset?
Well, the first, I guess, is there is that default mode. No, we grew up in an environment where the functional teams were the first team, so there is a very strong attachment to those functions, and very naturally, no, because that's where our expertise lies. That's we hire our team members. Some of them we develop and we work with them, have lunch with them every day. So it's quite natural to have a very strong affinity towards your functionality. So I think that's the first challenge. No, how I it sometimes might feel disloyal na if I say yes, you're second and you're not first on my list. It's kind of like having children and saying one is a favorite versus another, right? So I think some leaders struggle with that, with having to say that out loud. Um, I think by doing so, though, what they're able to help their functional teams to do is to find alignment. No, if I can assure my team that we are working towards a bigger business goal, a bigger business vision, and we're aligning towards that, then it will help them to to address that as a challenge. So that's the first one, no? At very strong attachments to the functional team. The second, I guess, that I've seen is, uh, I guess, closely related to the first one. It's not making enough investments to create a cohesiveness at the leadership team. We almost assume that because they're very senior leaders that they would find their own way in figuring out how to work together and cohesively. Um, not necessarily the case, no. I think we have to make very specific and deliberate efforts in creating this team so that they can find good alignment, work better together, you know and really have that connection, no. The third, I guess, is not having a clear common cause, no. When there isn't enough of a clear vision that is not just articulated, no. In many cases we have these vision statements very beautifully worded on our websites, on the walls of our rooms. But do we really talk about how to move towards that end? Do we really talk about the collective accountability that we have to each other and to that end? So that, I think, might also be a challenge. The last one, which I think might be the stickiest one, is matrix organizations, which is quite common as well. You might be experiencing this yourself,
Mhm.
Lo, where you have, a business leadership team, where you are a part of, and you're also part of perhaps a regional or a global functional team. So you're wondering, okay, which one is my first team? Is it this or the other? um, and I know that can be very contentious, no? Sometimes the priorities of both those teams would be quite different, no? In On the one hand, you've got, a lot of standardization and centralization happening and push towards common across different markets. On the other hand, you have a market that's saying we have very specific and very different needs here, and we need to address them in different ways. So leave us alone and let us do our own thing, right? So there's lots of potential conflict there. um our Of course, there's no one solution and no one answer to that, but the question that I like to pose when that does happen and that comes across as a challenge is, where is it that the business gets to be driven more? No, where is it that it will have a larger impact to the business overall? Because ultimately, that's what really drives the performance of an organization, right? The business performance. So between a functional team of, let's say, an HR region or a local business unit, I might lean towards the first team being the local business unit. So those are some examples of challenges we've seen, and how we have conversations about them.
Great, great. Thank you for sharing, Jackie. And I think at this point, our viewers, are really considering and trying to assess where their organizations are, and
Mm,
perhaps they themselves, as HR leaders, as people managers, as
right.
department heads, trying to consider, okay, what then is my first team? Is it going to be this particular dynamics that I have on my left, or is it
Mm,
going to be this particular dynamics that I have on my right? And with the things that you've mentioned, Jackie, it really has to start with being conscious and being aware of how to look at things, perhaps which is
yeah.
first, which is second, so that by extension, our actions can then be guided.
Yeah, I love that. It's really about having deliberate and
Mhm.
intentional actions, no, and decisions made along those lines. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. And when you mentioned the sticky part, I am sure that our viewers could definitely relate, to the stickiness of that, Especially you mentioned matrix organizations, but of course at
Yes,
the extreme end there are lean matrix organizations, and
right.
I would assume it can really be a huge hurdle if you're already wearing multiple hats and
Mm,
your team would have several overlaps in them. That
mm,
could be another hurdle for you to try to identify, like who's going to be your first team, who's going to be your second team, etc. So thank
yeah.
you for sharing those challenges, Jackie. And hearing all these, the questions that people managers or HR professionals likely would now have would be, what then needs to be in place to
Mm.
support the development of this mindset in our respective leadership teams.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned awareness earlier, because I think that's definitely one of the things that needs to be in place, an awareness of where we are to begin with, right? So that you can make a decision of how to move forward from there. Um, what was critical in my own experience, in making the shift, it's one thing to know that this is a mindset I should have, and it's another to execute against it, right? And what was critical to me was having a very, very good understanding of the business processes and the business levers, right? I cannot represent the business as a whole, ask questions about it, become a participant in the business conversations if I don't first and foremost understand what these key business processes and levers are. So, it's taking the time to understand what are the key drivers here as an organization, as a business, right? That's the first, I think, foundational element. And then the others are a little more less technical, I would say, you need to have a very high level of curiosity, um, and asking questions about why certain decisions are made in other functions. That's very uncomfortable. I've seen in some leadership teams, no, if it's not my area of expertise, if it's not my function, what right do I have to ask you about your department, right? It
That's
makes
right.
people very uncomfortable. The natural curiosity does help. It has its value, and I think on the other side of that, if someone is asking you about your area of expertise, it's openness to that, and understanding that, if others are curious about my world, it's only going to be for the benefit of the total, right? um if I see it as a threat, if I see it and view it as someone, in Tagalog, we call that pakikialam, di ba? Nakikialam ka sa mundo ko, di ba? What do you know about my world? Then you immediately have this barrier, which deters people from asking more questions. So that openness to other people's opinions and other people's inquiries and curiosities, and I guess underlying all of that, right, the curiosity and the openness, there is a need for establishing trust. And this is the first thing that Patrick Lencioni will tell you to focus on, right? How do you build trust, and then accountability within the team, so that you can build up on having that mindset.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for providing actionable insights, Jackie. Like when you first mentioned identifying key drivers as a first step, I'm pretty sure is something that our viewers can immediately do in their respective
Mm,
organizations. No? And very very relatable when you mentioned about that, having that trust, no, and having, of course, boundaries, no, within organizations, and
yeah,
perhaps it's not just what right do I have, no, but perhaps sometimes people just are resigned, no, that okay, I'm going to be hands off because it's beyond my scope, it's
yeah,
beyond my locus of influence, no? So very very
yeah.
insightful.
It does put a little bit more onus on us, 'di ba,
Mhm.
as HR leaders to learn more. And to kind of drive ourselves to understand more about the business. But it that's if you start to speak the language of your team members, then the level of understanding will increase exponentially, for sure, right?
Mhm.
If I start to understand your lens from where you
Mhm.
come from versus here's my HR lens and there's your other lens, then we'll easily find common ground. Uh,
Mhm.
so it's harder for sure. It takes a bit of investment of time and effort, but absolutely worthwhile.
I agree, and it's a win-win proposition
Yes,
in the long
yes, for
term.
sure.
And I'm actually going through some of the comments that we have in LinkedIn,
Mm,
and some of our PMAP leaders and PMAP members alike, are also showing their agreement. Like for example, we have from Mark Hernandez, previous BOT. We have here agree, Jackie, according to Mark. Also resonating the stickiness of the situations that you were able to share earlier in the anecdote. No, we also have some comments coming from Renato Galera. One of the things that he mentioned is that it makes sense about the functional leadership for first team and the second team in business and public organization. He was also able to share an anecdote that in my past work experience, the hard situation are behavior and attitude. And I think majority in human resources and even people managers would agree, that
yes.
behaviors and attitudes could be more of the more challenging ones, that can be changed if we're comparing that to technical or hard skills.
Right, right. Yeah. There's even a lot of debate that I've come across recently about whether they should even be called soft skills, because technically They are much harder, much tougher,
Mhm.
and so some are espousing the calling them human skills
Human skills.
or critical skills. Yeah, so because nga
Yeah.
of the nature of and the
Mhm.
difficulty that they pose.
I can definitely agree with that. And they're very critical to organizations, and there's really nothing soft in them at the end of the day. You know how
Right,
they're
right.
critical drivers
Yeah.
of organizations. So also, thank you for sharing that anecdote. If I may step back a little bit, Jackie,
Sure.
and looking at like personal experiences that you have
Mm.
in developing this first team mindset. Of course, as an executive, when you were in corporate, and now as an executive leader in both Haraya and other organizations that you're leading. So once again, what personal experiences do you have in developing this particular mindset that you can share with our viewers?
Sure, sure. So like I mentioned earlier, no, I also struggled with this as a concept, no. I I have a very strong affinity with the teams that I work with. I love the people I work with, particularly when I was working in HR, I had a very good HR team working with me. I loved every one of them, right? And so it did feel like I was being disloyal. So that was a very personal experience for me. Um, and when and it was a mentor really that kind of sat me down and said, look, you've got to wear a business hat first and then your HR hat second, because that's when you can add more value to the business and to the organization. um, and so I did take that to heart. And what I did was I went on a I'm a very big learner. I like learning new things all the time. I'm studying and kind of taking course after course. But within the company, what I started to do was to talk to other business leaders. And literally, I had a spreadsheet breaking down our source of revenue, our sources of what are we spending on. I looked at our financials, and I really put it in kind of a like an org chart, but it's actually the revenue and where it's coming from. What are the drivers? Where are the biggest contributors to the business? How are they contributing? Really just diving into that and then talking to some of the leaders to teach me about it. And in the course of understanding that, I had a much deeper appreciation for business as a whole, and understanding how difficult it would be also to drive a business. At the same time, I kind of had a much deeper appreciation for the roles of operations and business. In fact, just as a side note, towards the end of my corporate career, I moved to a business development role. That's how seriously I took it. No, I shifted roles and careers midway before I retired eventually. But that's how I went through the process, no, of wearing that hat. Um, but I think one of the key turning points for me, in wearing my HR hat, as I was really taking to heart this mindset of first team, is when we would talk about talent. For example, talent conversations and succession planning is very much an HR driven process,
Mhm.
right? Um, and so we were working a lot with my leadership team at that time to create this mindset. And when we started talking about our talent, and I would hear leaders from different departments saying, okay, who's our talent here? And we would refer to each other's direct reports. That to me became a very good indication that, okay, I think we've gotten the hang of having this mindset now, because we are talking about talent as ours collectively versus this is my team and my talent versus yours. No, so that was one of the key highlights for me in that experience. I hope that helps. I mean, hopefully some of our listeners can kind of pick up a few things from that story and maybe make that kind of a measure of success as well.
That definitely, Jackie, and I'm pretty sure that people are very interested and very keen to hear and to see, like actual success cases of people, of leaders that are currently, in their journey of
Mm.
trying to integrate, and live this first team mindset. So being able to hear that from you, from your experiences, definitely is something that our viewers would appreciate. And perhaps Jackie, since we've been mentioning about like Haraya, your work with Haraya, and of course how Haraya has also been instrumental, in for you to be able to come up with this first team mindset. Perhaps we can spend the remaining minutes of the segment, just for you to talk more about like Haraya and how Haraya could perhaps help organizations to also develop this first team mindset.
Sure. Haraya is a coaching company, so that's primarily our approach. That's how we partner with our clients. We have a pool of coaches, um, and we match the needs of our clients with the resources and that we have in our pool. Um, when we're working with teams, our role as coaches is not to tell them what to do, not to prescribe, but really to understand what it is that is important to them and how can we create with them by partnering a brave and safe space so that they can figure out what they would like to do. So if this was something that was important to you and your team, we would have that conversation. We would open that up and say, okay, what does this mean for you? And what makes it important to have this first team mindset? What outcomes do you foresee having as a result of gaining this mindset? How does it add value to your culture and your values? How does it align? So those are the types of questions that we might ask. Um, at the same time, we also are coaches. I like to think are quite good at making very keen observations. Part of the training, teaches you to look for things that are happening and to be sensing what's happening. So we would also give very direct feedback and observations to our clients to tell them, Here's what you say, and here's what we are observing in the behavior. They don't seem to be aligned. What would you like to do with that? So those are some examples, I think, of some of the work we might do with our clients if we were working on building this kind of mindset and embedding it into culture.
Great, thank you for sharing that, Jackie. And I'm pretty sure you also have your first team in Haraya.
Yes. We've taken it a level further in our team. We call
Mhm.
it first circle because we have
First circle, so
we
much
work in
wider.
circles and in teams. Yeah, so it's there are no hierarchies in our team,
Mhm.
so they're all working in circles. That's what we call
Mhm.
them. Yeah.
Got it, got it. And I'm feeling that we're just scratching the surface
Oh, for
of
sure.
this particular concept of
I
first
could
team,
talk
Jackie.
all day about it.
And definitely just 30 minutes is not going to be enough, just for us to have a good understanding or a deep understanding of first team. But I'm
Hmm.
very happy, on behalf of PMAP, of the team behind the people manager on cam, that we are able to spend 30 minutes just to go through an overview, an introduction of the first team mindset. And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that this is not going to be the last time that we're going to be having an avenue for us to go deeper into this
Hmm.
particular concept or mindset, that you're able to share with us.
Thanks so much, Laura. And I think if there's curiosity that was generated today, then I think we'd done our job well here.
I'm pretty sure that there were, like coming again, looking at our comments from LinkedIn. Once again, from Mark, he mentioned when we are in leadership roles, especially in HR, we should not hesitate to have difficult conversations, and arming ourselves with different tools. One of which could be like the first team mindset. Could really help us, as people managers, as HR leaders and executives, to carry that conversation, to
Mm,
ensure that leaders would have the necessary, and needed mindset to move their organizations forward. So thank you once again, Jackie, for
thank you so
gracing
much.
our must segment for June.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. And there we have it. Thank you once again, Jackie, for sharing the concept of first team mindset with us. And I'm sure that our dear viewers and our listeners, also found value in that last 30 seconds. I personally have learned a lot from our short conversation, and I hope to have you again now in our segment, Jackie. Thank you,
Looking
Jackie,
forward to
and
it. Thank you.
thank you, thank you. Hope to see you again. There you go. Thank you so much. And now we now moved into our next and perhaps last segment for the afternoon, which is what I've mentioned earlier, going to be named Anticipate This, where we talk about upcoming events, innovation, ideas, breakthrough that we need to look forward to. And for this one, we're looking forward towards team development strategies. For this particular segment, now specifically, we're going to be talking about navigating with a team compass. And some of you might already be familiar or aware of what the Team Compass is. But if this is the first time that you're going to be hearing about this, then the next 30 minutes would prove to be very valuable for you. And to shed light on this matter, we have a very special setup for you. We have actually invited the members and the leaders of the branding and marketing committee of PMAP, BMC, as what we fondly call it. The ones who are behind this show and other social media platforms of PMAP. We have the ever reliable, one of our leaders in the committee, Jackie Lui, and the most energetic, our immediate past president of PMAP, Miss Ellen Fulido, to join us this afternoon. So let's just check if Joan Chung, also of Expresses Group, is also with us, no, one of the leaders as well, and very active contributors in our people manager on CAM. And I think at this point, we're going to be continuing with the conversation with the three of us. No? So good afternoon, Jackie and Joan.
Hi, Lawrence. Good afternoon. It's great to see you.
Likewise,
Hi,
likewise.
nice to see everyone.
Hello,
Hi,
hello,
Joan.
Joan. Great, great. No, I think it's not going to be the first time that we're going to be talking about this. No, because of course, as leaders in our respective organizations, being able to talk about directions, no, not only for our companies but also the direction of our committee, no, is something that we are very familiar, no, and that we always do. No, so that's why we're very happy, to welcome once again Jackie and Joan. This time, not as segment hosts, because in the past, no, you've always been segment hosts, but this time we're going to be guests. No? So I hope that you're also excited, no, to share with our viewers, no, some of your thoughts with regards to having a team compass. But first, we would want to also add in, no, immediate past President Ellen on the screen. There you go. So we have,
Hello. Can
there
you
you
hear
go. We
me,
have
Ate
three
Ellen?
leaders. Yes, very, very
Hi.
cool. There.
Hello.
Sorry ha, medyo I had to come in late. Nakabukas lahat ng laptop pero walang internet.
Okay. So no, no problem, no problem, IPPLN. No? And again, as I've mentioned, we're going to be focusing on having a North Star. And we're going to be looking at having a North Star both from the perspective of organizations, like for example, your respective organizations, how were you able to identify North Stars within your respective organizations, and how were you able to contribute, to achieving that North Star, being in your roles. And then after that, we'll go into the more personal, I would say, at the individual level. How are we able to identify our individual and personal North Stars, and perhaps share some stories, some anecdotes of how we're able to really maximize and go on a journey towards achieving those North Stars. So perhaps we can first start at the organizational level, and we can just go around the table relatively informally, and perhaps anyone can start with regards to being able to assist our organizations in finding their North Stars, or if we're playing a consultant role, we're wearing a consultant hat, just sharing some anecdotes and practices, how we're able to do that. Anyone who would like to start?
Siguro
Siguro
si
Titi
Coach
Ellen.
muna. Ako ba?
Nagpasahan tayo.
Anyway, good afternoon everyone and good afternoon to my team. It's nice to see you even virtually, and to our audience, magandang hapon sa inyo. No? Siguro from the organizational perspective, kasi when we say North Star, these are actually your vision, mission, and goals. No? And on a sabi nga nila, the vision is just there. It's a guide. It's something that's really hard to reach, no? But it will always be your guide. Kumbaga, just like in Bethlehem, you have to follow that star. You have to follow that star. And for you to follow that star at the organizational level, on a yearly basis, almost on a yearly basis, you have to craft your strategic plans in order to achieve your vision, mission, and goals. And to do this, you have to come up with plans on a short term, like 3 years, 5 years on the midterm, and probably 10 to 15 years. But given the situation that we're in right now, where every day there are a lot of changes, you really have to be ready in order to adapt to this change. No? Years ago, when you set goals like 5 years, 5 years talaga siya. But with the current situation, the changes that are happening, they happen more often than you change your clothes. You really have to make adjustments here, there, and everywhere. But what's important about setting your goals is that this has to be properly communicated to everybody, because none of this would materialize. You would not be able to reach your goals or reach your objectives and be successful with them if the people who would be making things possible for your organization are not aligned with this vision, mission, and goals. So it's kind of important that at the onset, no, yung onboarding pa lang, people are made aware of this vision, mission, and goals. In fact, when you do your hiring, your acquisition, talent acquisition, you have to check on the applicant's personal vision, mission, and goals and find out if they are aligned. If not, chances are you would be taking different directions. So they have to properly align themselves. I heard our resource person say earlier that alignment is very, very important. No, it's very important. As we say in management, when you explain this to people, there has to be UNA, understanding and acceptance. Because if they don't understand, chances are they won't accept, right? They may not necessarily agree, but they have to understand that this is the path we're going to take in our organization. And I think it's very important also that people are made to feel that they are part of the bigger plan. That no matter how lowly their jobs might be. Kasi you hear people, ay, clerk lang ako eh. Ay, janitor lang ako eh. But they have to feel that they are important in realizing these goals. That I'm part of the link. I'm one of the links in the chain. And that the organization will not succeed in achieving these goals without me. So it's important that these are explained to people at the onset and that they understand and accept.
Great. Thank you for
That's
sharing,
enough.
IPP Ellen. Thank you for sharing that. No, so given how VUCA na lang, no, para in short, no, the
Yeah.
situations are, no, and how targets are changing, not necessarily the North Star, no, but of course the way that we approach
Yes.
our North Star would have to change because of like changing difficulties, no, new challenges, new threats that organizations are experiencing. You're able to overcome them through your organization, no, with communication and consistent alignment. So I think that's going to be like two of the key points that we can list down, no, in our panel discussion of how we can enable ourselves as leaders, no, in our organizations in achieving that North Star, communication and alignment. Perhaps we can hear next from Jackie.
Yeah, thank you, Lawrence. It seems like we are in the same wavelength with which you mentioned about VUCA. No? So I would like to bring the gain frame of VUCA that was popularized by Bob Johansen, that the letter V is instead of volatility, it's about vision. So it is important for us to really understand where we are going because there are a lot of things happening along the way. But if you keep on looking at your vision, then you will be able to go, you will be able to reach that North Star. And the U, as PPLN mentioned about understanding. So instead of uncertainty, when you will be able to have um, a grasp of things and you will be able to have understanding, it will surely reduce uncertainty. Now, so you keep on exploring what is around your ecosystem. So your political ecosystem, your environment, your social, technological, and etc. And also the clarity, which is to what we know about VUCA is about complexity. But if you will just make things simple, just keep things simple, and whatever you can do at the moment, just do it, then you will be able to reach again your North Star. And the A, as mentioned again, about acceptance, and to me, organizational agility. Um, you will be able to find ways. You don't need to micromanage people this time. So you have to give them that trust. You have to give them that confidence, as long as you have given them that North Star again, no? The clarity of that vision and how it looks like for you and for them. Then I think organization will be able to really reduce certain ambiguity along the way, because you are giving them the space to become agile. So that's to me, Lawrence.
Mhm. And that's a great way of reframing, no, the typical approach to VUCA. Kasi of course, when we think about VUCA, when we hear VUCA, it's a bit we're focusing on the challenges, no, and it has some kind of a negative connotation, no, to it. But being able to reframe it, no, and looking at it from the perspective of vision at the V, no, and up until agility at the A, definitely reframes and flips things around so that we're more optimistic, no, and we can definitely use that to arm ourselves towards this particular journey. So thank you for as well for sharing that, Jackie. And of course, lastly, we can hear it naman from Joan.
Ayan, hi. Naalala ko kasi when PP Ellen shared about the vision, no, that when you ask someone, no, I remember the story of the NASA story wherein I think that was President JFK when he visited NASA, and he asked the janitor there, "What is your job? What is your role here?" And the janitor proudly said that, "Mr. President, I'm here to to help put a man on the moon." And I think this is one of those examples wherein the vision is very clear, the message is very clear and resonates with all the members of the organization, regardless of their role. It's because they can connect their role in how the outcome or the expected target is, right? So, in connection with that, I think it's very important to have a strong communication within the organization so that we can really cascade and align this vision with the members of the team. But one of part of the title, no, that we have is navigating with a compass, diba? I think it's also important that we use the values, no, as part of our decision making, as part of this compass, diba? Um, the vision is our the target, no, it's the direction. But in order for us to steer properly, we have to have this compass, and these values are also critical in ensuring that we go the right direction, that all the departments are working together, are aligned. And when we look for people, no, to fill in, sorry, medyo may, when we look for people to fill in, it's also important to have that fit, no? Like what TP Ellen mentioned, dapat same yung vision, but also same yung values, di ba? Para at least same direction tayong lahat. There.
Great for mentioning that, Joe. No, that's actually a good segue to the next question because, of course, we first start to identify, okay, where are we heading now? And then the next question is, as you've were able to allude to, no, in your initial response, was that how do we then get there? Now, what could be the tools that we can use? What can be the tools that we can use, no, as compass, so that we can navigate there? Now, and you were able to mention values, no, values as that compass, and perhaps we can go around again, no. Let's try naman paatras naman siguro tayo, no. You can go to Jackie and then close it with IPPLN, no, for this
Yes.
particular segment, no. So for you, Jackie, no, what could be, no, like additional things that organizations could consider aside from values, no, that they can use as their compass leading to their North Star?
Yeah, thank you, Lawrence. No, so I happen to study the global leadership, and part of it is the building effective teams. And there are six team conditions that we have to be aware of so that our team will be very effective, no, as we go along. Of course, the most important is the compelling purpose, which is the vision that comes along with the values. The most important as well, and one of the essentials, is a real team. Do you really have that real team? The real team means that you are working together in a longer period of time and you know each other. So that's a real team. Another essential is the right people, and I think it was already expounded by Joan, that, and also PPLN, that you need to find the right people who fits within the role, and complementing roles and complementing competencies. And there are also three, aside from those three essentials, there are three enablers. One is your structure, and what is also very interesting there that I have learned is that you need to, although there is no cast on stone on the number of people who are directly reporting to you, but it is being mentioned that if you can limit it to five, so the people who are directly reporting to you will be five, because you can imagine the dynamics, the communication dynamics of five people within your team. So there are already 10. When you are going to communicate, you are going to communicate plus across. So how many communications are being made for the five members? So I was also imagining that I have around seven managers before reporting to me. So how many time, or how much time you're going to allocate for the one-on-ones, and also for your team meetings. And another is the supportive organizational context. So how do you reward them for every good behaviors or desirable behaviors that they have performed or they have manifested in your team? And the last one, if you were able to do all of those conditions, then you know how to coach them. So so in order to guide them, so if for example, we talk about the North Star, and you will be able to empower them on how to do their things. But if they have diverted into something or some pathways which it will be a long route towards the North Star, then you will be able to coach them how to find another way, so that they'll be able to go to that pathway that would be easier and a shorter period in going to the North Star. So those are things that I would like to really share with you, that we have to also look at those things when we would like to deal with our teams in an effective manner.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Jack. I actually listed them so that I could use them later. So I shared vision. No, you need to have a real team, right people, no, structure, supportive organizational context, and lastly, coaching. No, so thank you for sharing that. Let's hear it next naman from IPPLN.
When you have goals, set right there, it's in the horizon. I've always said this. See, the quintessential Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Why? No matter how good your strategies are, these are always anchored on the culture of your organization. Jokingly, I would say, anong culture? Lactobacilli, Shirota strain. but but seriously, no, culture plays a big role in achieving your goals, in setting your vision, mission, and goals. Because si Coach Jack was mentioning about having these values. I think, and also Joan mentioned this earlier. When you talk of values, you associate this with the kind of culture that you build in the organization. So your values are a product of the culture. These are the values of people. That's why we always say it's also vision, mission, and values. No? We have values in our organization, and to me, to create a winning team, we have to be anchored on our values. We may have all the sophisticated systems. I would always say that when you encounter problems, glitches along the ways, bumps on the road, management gurus would always say, take a look at the system, because 80% would be systemic. if you solve the systemic problems, then you address the entire problem. But not necessarily so, because the hardest part is the 20%, where behaviors, where attitudes play a big role also in contributing to addressing the concern, right? And this is the more difficult part. And I think if you have winning teams, no, you have winning teams, you also share the successes with your teams, because you have to celebrate the smallest wins. Like, for example, in a manufacturing company, meron dyan yung, we have already achieved 100 man-hours of zero accident. Yay! May papansit, merong champagne, etc. Because these are milestones. And, everybody would feel that I'm part of that success, right? So to build a winning team is to build a culture where you celebrate the small wins also. Because, as mentioned by Coach Jack, you empower people. And the way to empower people is not just to tell them what to do, because these are our objectives. This is what you're supposed to do. So it's more transactional than anything else. But if you're a people-centric leader, you would not tell your people what to do, but you would ask them, what do you need in order to succeed and contribute to the overall success of the organization? So that, to me, those are very, very important, because you empower people. You make them own the project, because there is more commitment when you own the project. Sa'yo yan, di ba? So I would just like to share that no matter how good your systems are, high tech ka and all, but if the 20%, the critical 20%, the critical few would not be a winning team, and they will not be encouraged to participate actively in achieving those goals, that would be nothing.
Great. Thank you for sharing, IPPL. No, I mean, at this point, we've just done 20 minutes of a crash course on inspirational leadership, no, and hearing it now from leaders, no, not only in their respective organizations but also leaders in PMAP, no, Joan, Jackie, and IPPL. No, and I think it would be good for us to also try and take a step back, no, and look and try to close out this segment on a lighter note, no, by trying to go into personal north stars, no. And if you can just share with us, no, some high level journeys, no, of how you were able to embark on your journey towards achieving your personal north stars. I'm pretty sure now that our viewers would also be very interested now to hear more about our PMAP leaders. And perhaps we can start with IPPL naman, and then we close it out. We
Well,
close
you
it out
know,
with Joan.
I would always share this, no, when I do speaking engagements, that it was not instantaneous. I've set goals that by age 25 I should be a manager, I should be this. I never became a vice president or a PIMA president overnight. So it was all blood, sweat, and tears. Every day is a continuous learning day for me. You just don't learn from the classroom, but you get to learn from the experiences that you learn from your colleagues, from people around you, and the experiences that are being shared to you. In fact, in one of the sessions in Leadcom, I was asked, why do you want to be a mentor? Because I said I was blessed to have very good mentors as I was building my career. And this is an opportunity for me to plow back whatever learnings I got. Learnings, you don't acquire them just for yourself, but learnings are meant to be shared. So for people out there who are listening or who are tuned in to us, for you to reach your goals, kasi I still have other goals, no, aside from my eventually, um, you would cross paths with people. Either they break your heart or make you succeed, but either good or bad, you learn lessons from them. And for you to succeed, don't be afraid to fall. Take risks. Take risks, because a person who risks nothing is nothing and does nothing. And therefore, when you take the risk, be ready to face the consequences, but be hopeful that things will turn out well, because after all, success is failure turned upside down.
Great, great. Thank you. That was very inspirational. Thank you for sharing your North Star journey, IPPLN. Let's hear about yours, Jackie.
Okay, so thank you, PP Elena. So, would you believe that of course, I have to redo life and unlearn a lot of things when I recalibrated my profession. So, would you believe that I took around 13 coaching sessions for me to define my purpose, and I was able really to put it into my heart, and this is really my vision, my personal vision, and the personal vision and the vision as well of the company that I am building. No? So, and it is about inspiring regenerative transcendence, and that is very personal to me. And with that 13 coaching conversations, I was also able to really form and define as well my values. And I was able to, we are talking about North Star, and I was able to have a star as my values, no? Stewardship, transcendence, adaptability, and regeneration. So, and it took me a while. It took me a while. It took me time to really define that. So that's why when I have coaching conversations also with leaders, um, I am really happy having them reflect deeply on what their vision is, and they really are working hard to really have a grasp on that vision, because it's not really a walk in the park when you would like to really define your vision. So, and if you are very serious of, or really it really matters to you, then you really need to find a support for you to really define where you would like to go, or is that what is that vision, that vision really look like for you. So it's okay to find a support. So that's
Great, great. Thank you.
mm.
Thank you, Jackie. No, I mean, I have to catch up with the acronyms that you have. Very, very insightful and very, very packed, very, very comprehensive. Thank you for sharing another one, and that's going to be your personal star. Thank you, Jackie. And of course, lastly, let's also hear it from you, Joan.
Hi. For me, I think, well, before I share, I think it's a different journey for each person, right?
Mhm.
Some people find their goals, find that making their goals is easy. Some take a little more time with a lot of help, diba? Some don't find it until they reach their twilight years, right? So, I guess for me, my journey, um, it was a little bit of, but it changed along the way. No, I guess that when I started, I want to be in a different field, but then I got exposed to HR, right? Even if I studied psychology, naman, psychology and marketing naman, I started uh, uh, working in marketing first, but then eventually I enjoyed working with people more. No, kaya ako napunta dito. So, I guess this experience led me to where I want to be. And they say that you only connect the dots looking backwards, right? So parang when you look back, when I look back, I see that eventually I think that it is here that I was meant to be as well. But apart from that, I guess the biggest uh, would you say the biggest vision that I have right now is uh, to be the best mom that I can be, because um, leading people and leading and um, nurturing my children, parang may ang daming similarities. I found out that like if you're a mom and you're a manager managing teams, there's so many similarities, no? Mas mahirap pa nga minsan actually
That's the
mag-manage with
hardest career,
children.
That's right.
actually. That's the hardest of all careers, sabi
Diba?
nila, being a
Pero it's so
mom.
fulfilling, di ba? Ayun. So I guess once you find out or once you experience it, then it grows in you. And 'di ba, parang mas nurture mo siya inside. So yeah, with help also from different coaches.
Great, great. Thank you for sharing, Joe. No, and I think we can have the rest of the afternoon just doing some catch ups, no, and inspiring our audience, inspiring our viewers, no, of how such leaders in PMAP, how such leaders in their organizations, no, are able to make this journey, no, towards achieving their personal north stars. But alas, we only have like 2 minutes left, no, before we wrap up the segment. So once again, no, on behalf of our team, on behalf of the people manager on cam team in a BMC. I would like to thank you, Joan, Jackie, and IPPLN for gracing us
Thank
in our anticipate this segment this afternoon. Thank you once again, and we
you.
hope to also to see you, and to have you as segment hosts once again in our succeeding segments.
Always a pleasure, Lo. And we would like to thank you. Personally, I would like to thank you for taking the lead all the time, Joan, and the rest of the team, si Coach Jack, for always, sharing your time and expertise in making these things happen. Go for the gold.
Great, great. Thank you, thank you. Have a great
Thank
afternoon,
you.
Take care.
Jackie,
Bye.
Joan, and
Thank
PPLN.
you. Thank you, love,
Bye.
June and
Thank
Ellen.
you.
There you have it. Thank you so much once again, BMC team. It was a very, very insightful conversation. And that is actually a wrap for this month's episode. We hope that you've learned a lot from the leaders that we have invited this afternoon. To all of our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in with us, even sending in your comments, tagging your colleagues, and sending in your emoticons, in our different social media channels. Catch us once again next month for the latest topics and discussions in the people management world. Again, my name is Lawrence Ko of Mondanis Incorporation, and this is People Manager on Cam. Good afternoon.